Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
It's all about Aletheia Marriage Counseling Services. And yes, we are joined here once again by James W. Ramsey, who's here to talk to us today more about what's happening in a marriage. And of course, the work that he does to help marriages, to save marriages, and overall help you live a better, happier, healthier life. So, Jim Ramsey, a professional of the year, again joining us. Excited to have him here as a licensed marriage and family therapist. Welcome back.
Good to be here.
Great. And for those of you who would like to reach out to him, AlethiaMarriageCounseling.com, ALETHEIA, marriagecounseling.com. Are you afraid you will never grow old together? Are you losing your close, loving feelings? Well, contact Jim today. And Jim, would you mind just telling us a little bit about yourself and services that you do offer before we begin?
Well, I've been specializing in marriage work my entire life. I'm going on 80 this year and I've been doing marriage counseling consistently for 50 years. Been married 56 years. So my passion is helping couples. There are just way too many divorces happening that don't need to be happening. And I'd love to help you make sure not only you keep your marriage, but that we transform it, have the marriage you've always wanted.
And I know you also give out your phone number as well. Could you share, the number that we can reach you best on?
Yes, my cell number is 406-370-3515.
Perfect. And for today, I know we've been talking a lot the past few weeks, going over different types of, relationship questions and about couples being together and angry husbands, angry wives. Today, we're going to start with this one. We have some of the common relational reasons that husbands may be becoming non-communicative, harsh, insensitive, irritable, or angry. What are some of those common reasons do you notice in a man as the husband? What usually happens?
Well, I would say that the most common thing that happens, and this will be a surprise to women, I think, is they get frustrated because they feel they're not a good husband. They feel they're not pleasing you. They feel they're not good enough. They feel like you're always upset with them. And so when you become emotional about things, the way they hear that is you're upset with me. And then when they phrase it, because you don't, because you never, that compounds it. It feels like no matter what I do, I'm not right. And so when a man feels incompetent or he feels like he's not doing well at the most important thing in his life, he tends to have an emotional reaction. And it's not the way women react.
Yep.
I mean, he doesn't get emotional about it. He just kind of withdraws.
Yep.
Or he'll be defending himself, trying to explain that I'm not that bad. Look what I did this, I did that.
Yeah.
And of course, that's not even addressing what you're trying to talk about. You're talking about your feelings, your needs, you want to be heard. He's trying to fix that problem by explaining how good he is or how well he's doing. And you continue to be emotional, you get even more emotional, then he thinks it's hopeless.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what I do, I'm messed up. I just don't know how to be a good husband to this woman. And so that is not to blame you as a wife,
Yeah.
not at all, but just to explain a very common dynamic. Either he'll withdraw, or he'll become more and more aggressive and angry. And of course, your reactions be emotional. And we have a vicious circle. It's just a terrible vicious circle. In fact, within the Gottman research, they call it the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse.
Oh.
80% of the time, the wife starts the process by wanting to talk, and she wants to talk about her connection issues, how she's feeling about the relationship. But he feels like when she says, I want to talk, you're going to get on my case. Here it comes, And so he's prepared to be defensive and reactionary, which is exactly the wrong thing for him to do. But that's how the situation works.
Well, also, do you mind me asking some of the ways that a wife can help him move away from these negative emotional reactions? What can we
Yes.
do?
Yes. I would like to suggest that we install a little gauge in your forehead. It won't be surgical, but just, and that gauge needs to have 2 little needles pointing straight up, and you want to make sure those needles stay there. On the left, you have R, and on the right, you have O. And you don't want the needles to go to either one. R stands for resentful. O stands for overwhelmed. These are the 2 things I find wives struggle with the most in their relationship. And so if you can see the needle's moving, it's time for you to sit down by yourself and ask
Yeah.
yourself, what's going on here? Well, I do all the work. I always have to do everything. Nobody helps me with anything. Okay. Then ask for somebody to help you, i.e., your husband and your kids. Sit down with them and say, we're going camping this next weekend. If it's like the previous times, I do everything. And I'm a good worker, but I don't think that's fair. Can you guys pack your own stuff? Can dad and big son there load up the heavy stuff and have it in the car? So all I have to do is kind of pick up the details and come out. Ask. And don't do it. That sounds a little bit sarcastic. Don't even do that. Just ask. Hey, I need help. Could you ask me? It make me so happy. Husbands will do anything to make you happy. Just ask
Oh,
for what you want. And if you feel overwhelmed, same thing. Too many things. I can't do everything. And so if you have to resign from being the president of the PTA, maybe it's time to resign.
yeah.
If you're exhausted, maybe you need to read a book for a little bit. Take care of yourself, just like an airplane. Put that mask on yourself first, then
Hmm.
take care of everybody else. The more you ask for things and thank them for giving them to you, the more success you're going to have, the better everybody's going to feel.
Now, in the event you ask and nobody wants to help, that's a whole nother problem.
That's a whole nother problem. You got to be careful not to assume that that's the case. Maybe they
Okay.
don't do as quick as you want. Maybe
Hmm.
they do exactly what you want. You want to notice anything that they did right and comment on that. And then say, it would really help if you'd also do this. The more you can
Yeah.
begin to really make it clear to everybody in the family what you need in a nice way. Just ask for it, and thank them for it. Husband starts feeling like he's making you happy, kids start feeling better, everybody starts feeling better. You, as a wife, are the emotional heart of your family. And I'm not picking on you, but I'm telling you the secret to success here. You are the emotional heart of your family. Mom is happy, everybody's happy. That little saying is in various languages around the world, not just in the US.
Beautiful. Well, let me ask, what are some of the common relational reasons that wives become non-communicative now and nearly emotional, angry, or hurt? Let's go to the female side of that.
Well, I think the main reason wives struggle is because their emotional needs aren't being met.
Hmm.
Men don't understand that there's two sides to intimacy. There's emotional intimacy and physical intimacy. And of course, hubby's always after the physical. And if she doesn't feel like the emotional is being met, she starts feeling resentful and
Hmm.
feeling used and feeling hurt and abused. And she becomes less responsive physically. So, what a man needs to know how to do is tune into her and what she's feeling and what she's needing. Intimacy for a woman is intimacy.
Yes.
I want to know that you see me. A lot of wives don't even feel like their
Hmm.
husbands see them in any
Yeah.
way. They're reading the paper, they're watching TV, they're going here, going there, watching football. The wife feels like everybody's
So
important
true.
except for me. I'm just the workhorse around here.
So true.
If a man will start keying into her, being curious about why you seem a little down, honey, what's going on with you? And really ask that sincerely and let her start talking about it. And don't try to fix the first thing that comes out of her mouth. Just hear
Yeah.
her, be curious. She'll talk and talk about things that need to be drained off and taken care of because it builds
Wow.
up inside of her. And so pretty soon you see a pattern. You see that she's been abused by a lot of people this past week
Mm.
and say, honey, I didn't realize how bad it's been. Hold her, pat her, tell her, I'm sorry, babe. I didn't know that you were going through this. Talk to me sooner because I want to help you. That kind of an approach, curiosity and compassion, is magical with a wife.
Beautiful. Well, let's also ask now, some of the ways that the husband can help the wife become happier, easier to live with. We kind of touched upon this a little bit, but yeah, tell us again.
Well, it ain't what you do, it's the way how you do it. It's not what you say, it's the way how you say it. Process for a woman is more important than content. 80% of what a woman observes and reacts to is nonverbal. So he can tell her how beautiful she is, how sexy she is, how much she loves him, how much he loves her. And then in the morning when she walks out and sees his muddy boots right in the middle of a freshly clean carpet, guess what she feels? Actions speak louder than words. It's the process more than the content. So a man that needs to do the right things, not just say the right things. He's got to be consistent in demonstrating by his behavior that there's no person or thing more important to him than she is.
Wow.
That's what gives a woman security. Then she knows she's safe. Then she knows she's loved. And she gets happier, more relaxed, more spontaneous, more responsive. but a man's got to help her with that.
Sure does. I sure do. You have to. Okay, I love this because it's true. As a female, I'm listening to this. He knows what he's talking about. Jim Ramsey here. And again, Aletheia Marriage Counseling Services. And what states are you allowed to work with people in?
Yeah, anywhere in the United States or outside. If you see me on the internet, you can call me.
Perfect. And what's the number again?
My little old cell number is 406-370-3515. And it has an
Perfect.
answering service on it. If I miss it, I'll get your message and I'll call you back.
All right, let's talk about a wife and how can a wife help her husband become less harsh, demanding, or controlling? Not to say all of you men are, but some.
Well, I've got to work with both, but
Yeah.
basically, what a man thinks he's doing is he thinks he's taking care of everything. He thinks he's taking care of his wife, taking care of the kids. He thinks he's being a good worker. He's being responsible. And a lot of times, in the way he talks, it feels to you like he's trying to come up with all the ideas and sell you on them. And it doesn't feel like a partnership. And that feels controlling. But from his point of view, I don't want to be a passive husband. Passive husbands are terrible. Wives don't like passive husbands. So I've lined up a trip to Hawaii. And I'm excited. Look, she's your partner, buddy. You're not a salesman. Talk to her about what she wants to do for vacation. And
Yeah.
then in the process, yeah, I've been thinking about Hawaii. What do you think about that? Get her involved in the process. Don't lay a trip on her and try to convince her. That feels controlling.
I would lose it if someone, yeah, planned the trip for me without me having any input in it. I just because I just feel like me as a woman, I'm a little more like, yeah,
Uh-huh.
like I want to be a part of this. Yeah, I
Absolutely.
like taking
Absolutely.
control. Why can't we have, yeah, yeah. I would be like in shock if someone planned a trip for me without like me even knowing, or even tried one of the last minutes. Hey, pack your bags. We're going somewhere. No, I have to know where I'm going. I need to make sure I have A, B, C, D, E, F, G,
Yeah.
H. You know how a woman packs, right?
And you speak for 90% of the women. Now,
Yeah.
all women like surprises. You can have an idea or, something simple thing like take her out to dinner for an anniversary. Surprises are all right. But man, when it comes to anything extensive like a trip, they love to know ahead of time. They love to help plan it. They're missing half the fun if they don't get to be involved up front. Otherwise, it's just like you control the whole thing. I would have done this if I'd known. I would have done that if
Yeah.
I'd known, kind of thing. And that's the key.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Now, there's also relationships where maybe women are some of the most demanding and controlling. What would you say to a husband in that situation if he's dealing with it the other way?
Well, and that does happen the other way. A lot of wives, without realizing it, are coming across very controlling. And a lot of times it's because they want to do things right. For example, if they're going to take the little kids out, they've got to have their stock, they're going to have their coats on, they have their mittens on, their little headgear on. The father might think, he's going in a warm car and we're going to go to McDonald's and it's warm in there.
Mm-hmm.
What's the big deal? And so sometimes a nurturing, loving mom can be down to the nth degree how it's got to be done. And that feels
Yeah.
controlling to a man. It's like, you don't trust me to take care of the child. You think I'm going to go out and freeze him to death somewhere. That feels bad. And so you got to be respecting each other and honoring how they're seeing things. See, it's all about perceptions. You've got your perception, I've got my perception. We need to be getting into each other's perceptions and account for that when we talk to each other.
Well, now let's ask about this. I feel like you tell me, but one of the major differences or problems I find, are we talking about men and women that are married just as a couples together? Do you see more problems, or once they have the children, do we see a lot more problems? I'm assuming you're working with both types of couples, right? Some
Yes.
that are married without kids, some are with. Is there a majority with the kids, or is there a lot of handful of people out there, couples that don't have kids that are still having problems?
Well, people without kids have problems too, because they're human beings and they want to do things their way, et cetera, et cetera. But the research that's gone on for 35 years through the Gottman Institute found that half of all divorces happen during the first 7 years. And the reason for that is these young couples are going through the major, major adjustments. Children are cute, but they also cry all night and they get sick and they have diarrhea and they have all kinds, it's a
Yeah.
challenge. And sometimes you go into marriage and having kids with unrealistic expectations. He's going to be the perfect dad. He's going to help me every night, and and he's telling you, "Well, I got to get up early and go to work. This is your job. You want the baby." And then, oh boy, we're off to the races. Or he'll feel like all she wants to do is the baby. She doesn't care about me anymore. And so there's all kinds of relational connection issues that are really threatened by people having unrealistic expectations and then reacting in a bad way. And then we can react back, and you're off to the races with vicious circles because of the way you're dealing with changes. Not just the babies, but owning your own house or living in your own house, and all the expenses and the job demands. All these new things are hard for couples because they were just out doing their fun thing, foot loose free before that.
Interesting. Well,
There's a tendency away from children, I think, is a sad tendency. The Gottman Institute's answer is you need to have a course on what you should expect with babies and go into it shoulder to shoulder, and your love will deepen, and you'll have a deeper love than ever because you had the children together. But a lot of people are just afraid of it, and they're not having children, and then that's another problem. We don't want to be like Japan, where everybody's 85 over there, kind of thing. A little bit of an exaggeration, but
I know, I know. Oh my goodness. Well,
it's
in your career, now how many years have you been doing this for? Not to
50.
date you, but you would never believe that. You say that all the time, and I'm like, is he really serious? I guess it's possible. Have you ever, okay, come across a perfect couple, but there's no problems? Any friend, family members, including yourself, is there any such thing as a perfect relationship with no?
I think there are a lot of them based on everybody around them. You know, a perfect relationship by definition is not that you never have a disagreement or you never
Okay,
have an argument. But what you might call a perfect one is where you're not yelling at each other, you're not leaving the house for a day or two, you're not kicking them out of the bed to the couch for a night. I mean, I've been married 56 years and I've never been on a couch. I never had to leave. She's never left. We haven't had yelling matches that had to call the police or, we have. So people that have those problems look at somebody that smiles a lot and they hold hands still when they've been married 40 years. Wow, that's a perfect marriage. Well, it's not perfect, but by George, it's healthy. We
yeah,
have disagreements, but we're healthy. We respect each other. We believe in each other. We trust each other, and that's huge. And it's doable. It's not like you have to be a saint to be a good married person. You just have to have certain understandings and skills.
wow. Well, okay, in all your years of experience, could you tell us some of the things that key takeaways that maybe you've learned of how to keep that relationship alive and growing? What would you say some of those key takeaways are?
Well, I think that there's just a principle I think I mentioned once before, but I can't say it too often. Each of you need to feel based on your partner's behavior.
Mm-hmm.
There's no person, thing, or activity in this world more important to them than you are. Now, when I say that, women just, but it's true for men too. Men have wives that they don't think put them first. Now, having said that, we're not saying that you're going to go through life holding hands all the time, you know, but it's the way you feel together. You know that this is my very best friend. You are courting each other throughout your entire marriage. You're having little surprises, little rendezvous, little secrets. You have afternoon delight, whatever. And people think you don't have intercourse after you're married and 24 years old or something. No, people that love each other are sexual throughout their lifetime until they die, until they
Yeah,
can't do things anymore. But it's a courtship. You grow to know each other more and more, love each other, respect each other, value your differences. And that's something that's what God made us. That's what He wants us to do. But we are by fallen nature, we're very selfish. And we're not inclined to really put somebody else first. But when you each do it, you can't outdo each other. And it's not pro quo. It's just what you do when you love somebody.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you for sharing this. And we still have more time together here. We are talking with Jim Ramsey. If you haven't figured that out, he's our expert and communicator with relationships and again, marriage counseling in Missoula, but also again, anywhere around the country. He's able to work with you with his counseling again for marriage. I know we've been talking a lot about marriage and couples counseling, but there's also divorce counseling. You do premarital counseling, divorce counseling, even Christian counseling. So there's still a lot that you do cover. Now, let me ask you, when someone does make that decision to go through a divorce, what type of coaching process does that become?
That's a very good question and a very important one. You see, all this research that the Gottman Institute did really came up with what are the basic relationship skills? That pertains to work, that pertains to friendships, that pertains to anybody, pertains to parent-children. So if you learn how to relate effectively with your partner, even if you're divorced, that's going to make your life better because you still have to work together for the kids. You still have to navigate social events with in-laws that are no longer your real in-laws because you're divorced, you know. And so the more skillful you are, the more kind you are, the more understanding you are, the better you're going to get along whether you're married or divorced. Now, a lot of people will get this help and get divorced, but later on they'll think, man, I miss that relationship, and we made a lot of headway in our divorce counseling, and they get more friendly. They help each other. They do more with the kids, and pretty soon, after a year or two, they decide to remarry. You see, when you relate to each other properly, things get easier, whether you're divorced or married. And there are cases where people went through divorce and got help with their relationship communication wise, got divorced. And then a year, two, three later, sometimes five later, they get back together. So that's always a possibility.
Interesting. And do you recommend for couples that, are thinking about getting married? Premarital counseling sounds like a pretty good place to start.
Absolutely. Those are the smart people. No, get the help, you know. And the Gottman work, for example, if I do work with them, it's not going to be just lightweight premarital. I'm going to teach them the things they need to know. It's going to be like premarital counseling on steroids. We're
Wow.
going to make sure that they're ready for marriage. And a lot of people today are not prepared for marriage. They just are, starry-eyed about each other, and they just pop into bed with each other the first day or second day, and then they live with each other a year or two, and then they get married. And then they find out there's something different about being married as compared to just living together. In fact, research shows that living together is a bad habit. It leads to more divorce than not living together because you
Yeah,
always have the back door open when you're living together,
true.
relationally speaking.
Yeah.
And that has to be shut down and locked if you're going to really be committed and do the work that needs to be done. Now, I'm
Okay.
talking about the door. The door
Got it.
needs.
So you recommend not living together until marriage, I'm
Well, I
assuming.
think it's a good idea not to. Yes. I'm not saying that it's horrible or it's going to make a mess of things, but I think it's really good to do the work up front. Make sure everything's right.
Yep. And what about even when you're combining two families?
Now, if you're combining two families, it's even more important that you not only relate to each other, but you do things with the kids. So they see the romance. They're part of the romance. They actually help make the decision to get married. We're thinking about maybe getting married. What do you kids think? And if,
Mm-hmm.
if you do it right, they're like, wow, really? Because they already met the other kids and things are going right. But you got to do things right. You don't pop surprises on people like this that
Now,
involve them.
now, what happens if you have two families that aren't getting along, but you couples in love, but the children aren't getting along? I mean, that's a make or break with the relationship, isn't it? It could be.
It could be. And there's some work to be done. And you would be making a mistake to just kind of say, well, it'll work out somehow. These kids need to line up. No, 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 no. Do the work before you get married if you possibly can. You know,
Got it.
the man needs to relate to these kids like a really good friend of the family and do things with them. And you need to pay your dues because it's a hard thing to make that adjustment.
Got it. Well, we
Respect
always
is really nice
appreciate your
too.
advice. And how did you want to close off for today, Jim?
Well, I just want to say that it may seem impossible to save your marriage, but it's not. A lot of things that are going on are based on misunderstandings and reacting to misunderstandings and what we call vicious circles. The four horsemen of the apocalypse is the main cause for divorce in marriage, according to research. And all of that is based on wrong perceptions and reacting to those perceptions and reacting back and reacting back and reacting back. And you get flooded. You're so upset, it's hard. You've got to change those patterns.
Yeah, we sure do. All right. Well, thank you again for being here. Always a pleasure speaking with you. Are we back again next week, Jim?
Yep, I'm looking forward to it.
Can't wait. I always have such juicy stuff to talk about. And I just, as a woman who's single, has been single, never been married, I'm hoping, I'm learning a lot from you what I would need to do in this case in the future. And hopefully, I can yeah, one day assimilate my children into another family somehow. And, as soon as I find the right one for me and vice versa. But it's good to do this ahead of time. I'm learning from you. Some people do it out of order, right? And that's okay. So I appreciate the discussion. It's helpful not only to so many, but to me personally too. Thank you,
Oh,
Jim.
thank you. Thank you.
I mean that. All right. You have a fantastic day. Aletheia Marriage Counseling, and we'll talk next week. Enjoy the rest of the week. Okay.
Okay, same to you.
Thanks so much,
Bye.
Jim. Bye-bye.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.